In the last class, we were discussing about the basic concepts behind pre-stressed concrete and what are the types of pre-stressed concrete that we have in general. So one is pre-tension system, and another one is post-tension system, right? So I'll just get into the corrosion point of it. So when we have such systems, it is very important to have important to provide proper strand protection for ensuring a long-term behavior. So compared to your conventional steel structures or conventional reinforced structures, when you have pre-stressed concrete structures, these are very critical in terms of your corrosion point of view. Why? Because your strands are already under stressed condition. So when it is under stress condition, so your energy state is your energy level of your strand, so that is going to be at the higher range and they tend to react faster. So you need less amount of chlorides to initiate the corrosion compared to the conventional reinforced concrete structures. So here you can see a structure, typical girder that we can consider from the bridge structure. So when you have such things, your strand arrangements will be something like this in layers, and then you have concrete. So this typically represents the cross section of pre-stressed concrete beam with embedded strands, right? So when you have such things, so regions that is there exposed or the strands near the cover creek, those are very sensitive because through this region your strands will be exposed to aggressive environments like chlorides. So your chlorides can enter into your concrete through your cover creek. The chloride in 1 second, I'll just make it. So the chloride increase through concrete cover has to be controlled to protect your strands. And here you can see the general difference between the corrosion that we are talking for strands and deformed rebars. So when you have strands, the corrosion mechanism is going to be slightly different than your conventional rebar, because in conventional rebars, you consider a rebar and then you have a concrete. And when the rebar starts corroding, there will be rust formation at the interface, and the rust formation is going to induce expansive stresses. So because of that expansive stresses, you may, you will observe a cracking on the interface, and that cracking will lead to ooze out of rust particles that is there at the interface. So you observe a lot of pits on the surface due to chloride increase, and then because of the rust formations, there will be expansive stresses that lead to cracking on the concrete surface. And then because of you have this crack path, and now further the rust particles, the growth of the particles could ooze out through this cracks. So you can see there are strain on the concrete surface, and when it starts initiating, and you can address the problems at that early stage itself by looking at the rust formation. So you know that portion is started corroding, and that needs to be fixed. Whereas in this strand case, you have 7 wires, you have one at the center and 6 wires were kept outside, and those are like helically wound together. So you can see like this one at the center wire, king wire, we generally say the center wire is called as king wire, and then 6 outer wires. Typically the outer wires thickness will be slightly lesser than the inner wire. So for example, for 12-point strand, it could be 4.4 something, and where 4.4 mm dia at the center, and whereas the outer wires could be 4.2 mm or something. So now the thing here is these strands are not solid rebar. These are not solid single bar like you have in your conventional reinforced concrete systems. So here you have 1 wire placed at the center and 6 wires placed helically outside. So you can see a lot of gaps between the wires here in this case. So in between the wires also you have some interspatial gap. So now what happens when the wire is corroding, when the wire starts corroding? So unlike in conventional reinforced concrete systems where you have a impact like a solid structure, and because of the rust formations you expect the, due cracking due to expensive stress, and you can see stain formation on the surface. Whereas in this case, once the wire is start corroding, the rust particles go get filled in the space. So because of that, the expensive stresses will not be that significant to cause cracking. So you are basically here in this case, the expensive stresses is getting delayed, and thus the cracking will be delayed. Whereas inside the system, the corrosion is in progress, and that may get to be visible when you have severe cracking. So you may not able to address the problem at the initial stage unless you find the significant failure in the system. So these two are the major difference you can notice between the deformed bars and 7-wire strand. So in deformed bar, you can observe yearly cracking because of the expansive stresses, and thus you can get to visibly look at the corrosion products on the concrete surface. Whereas in 7-wire strands, the initial corrosion products that get occupied between the spaces, so that delays the expansive stresses and further cracking. So you will not see the stain formations until you have some significant distress in your system. So there will not be any visible signs of distress until you see 6% cross-sectional loss. So 6% cross-sectional loss that could lead to severe reduction in your structural performance. So that is not desirable for pre-stressed concrete systems. So this is why corrosion becomes too critical in pre-stressed concrete systems compared to your conventional concrete system. So the difference is, one is the like stress condition, another one is the geometrical conditions. Here, because of these helical wires, your corrosion product gets filled in between the wires, and that delays the expansive stresses that could cause cracking. Fine. So if you look at the failure mechanism, here, so as I told, when you have chloride-induced corrosion, your corrosion is going to be localized and it's based on pit formations. Here also you can see the for solid rebar, there are a lot of pit formation on the surface, whereas for strand case, the pit will be very deeper. So you'll have deep pits in the case of pre-stressing strands. Because due to the stress concentration, so you can see a lot of pit formations due to stress concentration and early structural distress. So this could lead to, so for example, here in this case, I told you have one center wire and 6 helical wires. And if you consider one pitch length, so one pitch length in the sense, the length required for one wire to attain the same alignment, right? So to complete its rotation, so that is what we call it as pitch length. So in one pitch length, you have 6 wires completing its rotation. So you will have 6 wires in all the sides, going on all the sides. So once you start looking at one particular pitch length, and when that region is corroding, you are actually experiencing the corrosion of 6 wires in that region. So all the 6 wires in that particular region is experiencing corrosion. So the cross-sectional loss of those 6 wires is going to be occurring in a particular pitch length. So now, for example, in this case, in this image, you can look at the pit formations at this point. So over the time, and as corrosion progress, and this wire gets weak, and then you may observe fracture of this particular wire. So this particular wire get fractured. So it may get ruptured at that point, and then this will lead to the load or stress distribution to the other outer wires, right? So once this wire get ruptured, so you can see the failure of first strand. So if your structural capacity is about some 300 kilonewton or something, so once your strand is fractured, then you will observe a slight reduction in your capacity. And as I told, it is not going to stop with your one wire. And if you consider a one pitch length, all the 6 wires on the pitch length is going to experience corrosion. And over the time, you will observe such type of cross-sectional loss in other wires, and eventually leading to rupture of those wires. So when the subsequent wires get failure, you will see further reduction in the structural capacity, and once it reduced significantly, you will observe structural collapse. So the time taken to initiate or to to fail the first strand is called your corrosion initiation phase in pre-stressed concrete systems, and further, as corrosion propagates, you will observe subsequent failure of other wires, and that phase is defined as corrosion propagation phase. So you have to give utmost importance to increase the corrosion initiation phase, so that you can prevent the corrosion propagation phase. So our idea used to be like, first, to control the corrosion. There should not be any corrosion at all. Even if it happens, then this corrosion initiation phase should be as longer as possible, so that you will not have any failure in your the system, so that there will not be any structural reduction in the, so there will not be any structural capacity reduction. So this is what we look when we design for, or when we consider the pre-stressed concrete systems. We need to delay the corrosion initiation phase as much as possible, so that we can avoid any failure of pre-stressing wires, which could cause a reduction in the structural capacity. So now let us look at what are the ways we can protect such strands, so that we can delay the corrosion initiation phase. So when we have, in pre-stressed concrete systems, typically the post-tension concrete systems, there we use strand in inside the duct. So we place the strands inside the duct, so the duct will be covering your strands, and this also helps you to protect your strand. But we need to take certain care to ensure the protection is proper. If not, again, in the other case, the conventional reinforced case, how the water or chloride or carbon dioxide, those or the major causes for initiating corrosion, can enter into the system. So we need to basically prevent it by ensuring this type of protection system that we use for pre-stressed concrete system. So the strands are typically embedded in plastic ducts, and you have some spacing between the strand and duct. So what you do, basically fill the spacing between the strand and duct, so you provide the additional protection, as well as this helps you to ensure a good bonding between this. So this basically comes under bonded post-tension concrete systems, and this is called as grouted tendons, and these tendons can be used internally in your pre-stressed system, or these can be used externally also for strengthening purpose, right? So in either way, the idea is here to protect the strand. This is placed inside the grout, and the spacing between the strand and grout has to be filled properly using grout. But in practice, when grouting is done, generally it is not done properly, and that will lead to a lot of voids inside the system. So those voids would eventually lead to moisture ingress and chloride ingress, which could cause corrosion. So it is very important to take care of grouting, and proper grouting would be challenging in terms of post-tension concrete systems. But we have certain ways and technologies to ensure that grouting can be done properly by avoiding any voids inside the system. So here you can consider a general structural members that we use, constructions, and then the strand profile that we adapt for different types of cross section. So the first one basically represents the simply supported beam section, and then the second one basically represents your continuous pre-tensioned beam element. So when you have simply supported structural elements, you can go with simple straight profile tendons, but it can be like halved at required locations. So you have a straight tendon profile as shown here, but whereas when you have continuous beam members, you have hogging and sagging moments, negative and positive moments, and then profile has to be given accordingly. So you go with this type of curved profiles. So the region is lower here at this thing, bottom part of it, and then at the center, the tendon is placed at the top level. So here the point here is that the grouting, whenever we do grouting, so initially you have the duct placed inside the concrete structures, and then strands will be placed inside the duct. And once strands are placed and positioned, you will be grouting through this end region, right? And so when you do grouting, you have to ensure that grouting is flowing freely, so that there will not be any defects inside the system. The grouting has to be flowing freely along the tendon profiles and all the possible locations of voids where you expect. So the grout has to fill voids inside the duct, basically between the duct and your strands. So how do we do that grouting? So either, as I told, depending on the applications, you choose either your strands to be used as internally or externally. Either way, grouting has to be done, and that depends on the profile of your strand. So generally, when we place the strand inside the duct, even if you place it at the center, at the end, what we are going to do is we are going to stress and lock the strands at the ends. So when we stressing it, depending on the profile, it will not be at the center. It will be either staying at the top of your strand, so top of the duct, or at the bottom of your duct, thus creating a eccentricity in your profile. So depending on the profile, the stand could be eccentrically located. So when you have such eccentrically located stands, you will have free and large spaces like here. So you can see these stands are located at the top, and you have a lot of free space at the bottom. So you typically you have your concrete, and then you have your duct here and stands placed. Now what you are going to do is you are going to fill the space between the duct and the stand using grout. And this basically represents in different forms, right? So if you have a web member, then you may need to have multiple ducts and tendon profiles, and this represents for deck slab. So you have your reinforcement placed, and then you have your duct and stands placed here, and in this case you have the stands located close to the bottom of your duct, and you have a lot of free space at the top. And this is a representative of a section from a bridge element. So in such cases, you also provide a drainage. So especially for bridge structures, we provide drainage system so that there will not be any accumulation of water top of the structure. So you have this drainage segment here. The surrounding the structure should be watertight and well drained. So you have provided these slopy regions, and all the water will get collected at that point, and it will get drained out through this. The idea here is we try to avoid the contact between our strand and water as much as possible, and we do all the possible ways to ensure it. And in this practice, when you have such stands located eccentrically, you have a lot of free and large spaces through which you can obtain a good grout flow. So the grout flows through such free flow paths, but do not fill the spaces between the strands. So when you have such things, sometimes you will be like filling only the available free and large spaces, but the spaces between these strands, the spaces between these strands, these small spaces, those may not get filled by the grouting. So when you have strands exposed to the environment, especially at the end of the section, so because those are the critical points for pre-stressed concrete systems, and such exposed strands would lead to premature corrosion. So how to do good grouting? So the practice one is that the grouting can be pumped from the lowest point to the highest point. So typically, like when you do it in the other way, when you pump it from the highest point to the lowest point, it is going to flow, but you don't know the upper part of your structure is filled properly or not. So there will not be any check to ensure the complete fullness between the let them stand. But whereas when you go in the other way, when you pump the grout from the lower point to the upper point, what you are going to do is you are going to push the grout particles towards up. So, and then you can, once that has come out from the other end, you can ensure that all the spaces between the duct and strands got filled by this process. So you can see the system arrangement here. You have a vent, and you have this stressing anchorage here at the end, basically that helps you to apply the required stress. And through this, this vent helps, if there is any moisture or air that should come out through this vent when you have good grout flow. So now when you are going to push things from the lowest point to the highest point, once there is a complete fill, then there will you will start observing some amount of material coming through this vent. So you have inlet now. So this is your lowest point. So in the highest points, you have all your vents. So when you push things through this inlet at lowest point, you have this grout flow going this direction and in this direction. And once these regions filled completely by this grout, the excess grout could come out through the vent. So this kind of helps you to ensure, you have done a complete grouting, is minimal or without any void in the system. So this is one of the practice that you can do by pushing the grouts from the lowest point, basically pumping the grout from the lowest point to the highest point. And this is the mechanism how it looks. So you have inlet. When you pump the grout through this inlet, then basically you are allowing the concrete to flow from the lowest point to the highest point, and that pushes all the air, or if there is any moisture, towards the vent, and those things can get expelled through the vent. And once you have obtained the complete fullness, you will start observing the grout coming out through the vent. So you can stop a grouting process. So the inappropriate grouting practice can lead to significant reduction in the quality of PTC grout, and that could result in void formation. So our idea is to avoid void formation. So this kind of practice will help us to ensure there is no void by pumping the grout from lowest to the highest point. And other way. So other way is that here you can see I have shown you the ends. You have the stressing adjustments, and the stressing adjustments where you have anchored your strands, and then at the end those anchored region will be covered also. So now for the critical point for in a structure where your moisture or chloride to get increase is at the end. So what are the ways that we can avoid entering of such deleterious elements into a system? So instead of this, so where you have this end anchorages and you have the duct placement in this horizontal profile, instead of this, if you just slightly angle down your arrangements, in that way, even if something enters into it, it cannot get into the actual system. So the water cannot enter into this highest point from the lowest point unless there is some pushing. But since this is going to increase, this cannot enter to that high level. So by keeping the anchors face down, that can help you to prevent any moisture increase or chloride increase in the form of contaminated water. But if it is gaseous thing, then that may enter. But still, the idea is to prevent the moisture increase as much as possible. So the vents to avoid voids at anchorages, and then moisture increase. So by keeping the anchors face down, this will help you to avoid any moisture increase in it. So this is one of the good practice which helps you to avoid the moisture getting entered into the actual system here that is beyond this point. The third practice is that coverage at the end. So we know, we are talking about the critical point in your pre-stressed concrete systems, which is the end anchorage system. So when we have such end anchorage systems, we know that strands are anchored at the end, and we need to protect your strands. So we provide some covering cap. So typically cementitious caps are used to cover the end anchorages, and the cements are in general hydrophilic and that absorbs water and that reacts, right? So we do not want any reaction to happen there, but we just want that cap to just protect your strand. So we typically do provide a waterproofing material coating so that will not allow any moisture to get ingressed. But unfortunately, most times that coating will not be done properly, or the cementing will not be done properly. That means you will not some cases the cement cap will not be as durable as possible. So in such cases, instead of cementitious end cap, you can go with plastic cap. So that will help you to avoid such reactions and prevent moisture ingress as well, right? If you provide plastic cap, that will be helpful instead of cementitious cap. And even if you provide a concrete cap with coating, that will also be helpful. But cementitious that has more fine particles and that has tendency to increase moisture more, and that will lead to corrosion. So instead of cementitious caps and cover, you can go with a plastic cap or concrete with proper coating. So here you can see the PTC systems with end covered with cementitious materials, and this is also the same case. But here you can see because of moisture increase, the strands at these regions got corroded, and you can see a lot of rupture of outer wires as well at this point. So when you provide waterproofing coating, sometimes that may not be lasting for longer duration. So you may need to repeat the applications frequently to ensure the coating stays for longer durations. So alternatively, what you can do is instead of concrete with polymeric coating, you can go with metallic caps also. That will be helpful for providing a better protection system. So the metallic cap, again, that should not be made using steel. So here is an example of using metallic cap at the end, how that helps to provide protection for your strand system. So you have the end anchorage phase shown here. Your anchor is here to lock the system, and you have your grout cape, and then you have provided the segmental joint. So this is for the other segment to start, and this end basically you are going to use the metallic cap. So when you use metallic cap, you also provide some form of coating at the end. So in this case, it has used crack resistant bitumen coating, and which shows better performance than your cementitious coating. So in such cases, when you provide metallic caps and you also provide some crack resistance bitumen coating on top of it, that will serve better compared to your cementitious coating. Yeah, so now we'll look at the other possible method. As I already told, if you have some amount of moisture already there inside your duct, then when you try to fill the concrete, when you try to fill the space between duct and strand using grouting, sometimes the grout may not displace all the water that is there entirely, and sometimes that your grout may dissolve in the water that is there if the water content is more. So the chances are very less that the grout will entirely displace the water through the vent. And so in that case, if you have some amount of water, then the corrosion may get initiate, and your strands may get corroded, and that will be left as it is. So in there may be, that will lead to a lot of delays between placing the strand in duct and then the pre-stressing. In that case only you will see such kind of situation. So this was done why? Because initially people thought once you fill the water and when you pump the grout through the duct, and if the duct could displace the water, then that was an indication to stop the grouting by considering the grouting has done completely. But the grout does not have tendency to displace the water completely. If there is some small amount of water, then it's good. But if you have a huge water content inside already just to check, then it will not be helpful, and then this practice will not be that successful. So what we need to do is we need to stop filling the duct with water, and instead that you can pump the grout from the lowest point to the highest point. So initially when you know then the other practice is that avoid the usage of poor quality and hardened cement and excess water. So this again related to the end cap thing at the end. So avoid the usage of poor quality hardened cement and excess water in general for your concrete preparation also. Why? Because here you can see this particular thing indicates a prehydrated lump of cement. So when you use such type of cement for your concrete preparation, then that will not give a better durable concrete. You may end up having ingress of moisture or chlorides eventually. So this type of practice has to be stopped. Why? Because this will lead to poor grouting practices, which could lead lot of especially when you add more water, excess water, that will lead to bleeding. So when you have such bleeding over the time, once the water is lost, that will lead to a lot of void formation in your system, and those void formations eventually will lead to corrosion. This is another example where you can see, the critical points, especially when the bridge structures, when you have segmental constructions, the joints between two segments that becomes critical, because you have a small gap at the joint, and moisture can increase through that. So here you can see the such moisture increase through the joint, and that has led to such type of dampness on the surface. So what you have to do is when you have such joints, the joints has to be sealed completely and waterproofed. So you should use sufficient epoxy such that it is squeezed out and the joints between the segments are completely sealed. And rainwater was flowing through these joints in metro lights. So it was observed, like, because of the rainwater that could flow through this, and that has created such type of dampness there. So over the period, if you have such dampness, you will observe moisture increase through this, and that will lead to corrosion of strands. So what here it is observed is, like, in such cases you can provide proper drainage systems to drain out the water, or to avoid the accumulation of water on the structure. And here is another example which talks about the box girder, where your expansion joints that you provide becomes crucial. So why do we provide expansion joints at the ends when you do segmental structures? You may experience expansion of expansion. The member can expand when it is exposed to the atmospheric conditions. So where you need to provide some joints for it, so that if there is any expansion, that can counteract the expansion, so to avoid the stress concentration. So to avoid the stress concentration due to expansion, we provide expansion joints at the junction, basically the joints between the segments. So here is one such thing. When you have such thing, and if water gets enter into it, you will observe such type of stagnant water inside the box girder. So through the expansion joints, water can enter, and that will lead to such water stagnation at that point. So these becomes critical point now, and this will lead to damage your duct, and then it would lead to react with your stand for the corrosion initiation. So what you have to do is you have to provide proper drainage pipes so that the water can flow out from the system. Here again, when you use damaged duct, then that will lead a way for water to enter into the system, and further that reacts with strands and lead to such type of corrosion. Here is an example of such poor usage of ducts. So when you have damaged ducts, you can see the part of duct is broken, and when it is broken like this, and when strands are inside, and of course, as I told, we cannot avoid a complete. It's not possible to avoid the moisture increase completely. What we can do is, even if some amount of moisture gets increased, all we need to do is protect your strand by providing a proper protection system. So when we have in pre-stressed concrete systems, especially post-tension systems, we have ducts, and we are going to place the strands inside the duct. So we need to ensure that we are using good quality duct for protecting the stand. Suppose if the duct itself damaged, then that will not serve the purpose. And then the spacing between the duct and the strands. So if there are voids in between, then that will lead to accumulation of moisture in it, and then your stand will experience corrosion. And similarly, as I told, if you have joints or especially the expansion joints, and if water increases through it, then that will lead to water accumulation there. So what you need to do is you need to ensure that you are providing proper drainage system so that you will not observe such type of water accumulation. So if you look at closely, then because if these systems doesn't work and if it fails, then you will observe moisture increase and your stand will corrode eventually at very early stage itself. So these are some of the examples which indicate that pre-tension concrete systems that got collapsed due to stand corrosion. And this is an example of bridge girder collapse. The bridge called Francis Bridge in the United Kingdom in 1985. So that got collapsed just in 33 years of its service, whereas it is designed to serve for about 100 plus years. So these are some of the examples of premature corrosion of pre-stressed concrete systems. And yeah, so this is just an indication like why we need to give such importance in the designing stage itself to ensure long serviceability. So the issue is generally that we observe with segmental concrete bridges are like we do design properly, but we do not take care of those things when we implement the design. So many tendons are not adequately protected due to the inadequate design of grout materials and poor construction practices. So this becomes very critical, especially the infrastructure projects that we are talking about. Such situations have tend to Samantha's tendon failures in critical bridges, the US highway network. So for bridges, it is not only the look from the far away, but it is also the performance that plays a role to ensure the serviceability. And many bridges that we have failed at a very relatively like at the very young age of about 4, 8, 13, and 16 years of service. Yeah, so this one indicates like the quote, the importance of design and its functionality. So it is not just for how it looks, it is also for how it works. So the structure that we design is in the same way. It is not like how it looks, but it also for how it performs to meet the requirement in a long run. These are another examples of such type of failures in real-time structures. The direct exposure of so this is a bridge in Virginia Tech in US. So the girder of this particular bridge got failure. So if you look at the failed region, you can see it got failed due to corrosion. So why this happened? This is mainly due to the exposure to moisture and the chlorides. So no one knows that that particular element is corroding unless they observe a significant failure. So there is no warning and rising concerns about the safety. All it has done is like it got collapsed at the particular region. And here is another example of such critical points from a real-time structure. This is from the piers of Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Florida. So this happened because of inadequate grouting practices. Your strand got corroded. This is another example of a bridge which got damaged, failed at 17 years. You can see a lot of voids at the ends because the grouting is not done proper in the anchorage zone. So that could lead to the initiation of corrosion, and over the time it got failed. So this pier, so that got failed at 8 years because the end region is not grouted completely and there are a lot of voids at the ends. So there is another example of end anchorage system. So the cap that we use to cover the strands to protect the for its protection. So the caps that has provided here, you can see the in region there that is not covered at all. It has just kept as it is, and you can see the grouting is also not done properly. So this basically indicates semicircular grout face, and this has left as it is without any coverage. The grouting cap is not provided there. So in such cases, obviously, it is very certain that it could exposed to moisture and chloride environment, and eventually that will lead to the corrosion process. So here you can see in the cross section how you have you have your strands and some partially filled grouts, and this portion is not filled by grout, and this entire region is left uncovered. And if you look at the top portions, if you look this image closely, you can see corroded strands at the upper portion where grouting is not done properly. So how to ensure that after providing such thing, you need to ensure there is a formation of soft grout that should be avoided, because when you have something very soft, it's like foamy kind of thing, so that will have a lot of pores on it, and that will lead to moisture ingress, and the strength of the thing will also be less. So here is an example of such formation of soft grout. So they typically it looks like the foam of your coffee. So in such cases, you need to ensure that you are not using such type of grout for covering it. So here you can see the type 4 grout, which is in good quality grout without any pores or forms here. So here you can see the type 1 grout that is used. So this is basically called as soft grout, which has a lot of fine pores on it, and that will lead to moisture ingress. So you can clearly see the distinguish between these two types. So the bottom one is in good condition, but the top one is not, which is called as soft grout, and that has to be avoided because those soft grout will not be strong, and that has a lot of pores in it. So these type of inadequate specifications that we use for grouting will lead to a void formation, and that will lead to premature corrosion. Yeah, this is what I shown in the previous slide, right? So the end you can see the unfilled grout region, not completely filled grout region, and the uncovered end anchorages. So in pre-stressing pre-stressing concrete system, everything is depending on the stress level that is there in your strand. If your strand gets damaged or if it gets corroded, then the stress level is going to get reduced significantly. Thus, your structural performance of the structure will be affected significantly. So it is very important to protect the system because it acts as a backbone of your structure. So tendons are backbone of your structures, and you have to preserve it. So what we should do is we could prevent the corrosion as much as possible, and we should delay the corrosion initiation as long as possible so that you can ensure that your system would serve for longer duration. So you need to do a extra care in achieving this, and so that extra care at the initial stage that you are providing would be beneficial when you look at the long-term performance of your structure. So that's all about this module where we talked about the basic difference in the corrosion mechanism between the deformed rebar and the pre-stressing strands. Why you do not see early signs in pre-stressed system, and you will see the sign only when you have significant failure. And what are the ways we can provide the protection system for your strands, and what are the good grouting practice that you can adapt so that you can ensure good durable structures by preventing corrosion. Right? Yeah, that's it. I'll stop it here, and then we can continue with the next module. It is about deterioration of concrete and what are the failure mechanism that you expect specifically for concrete, and what are the ways to control the failure mechanism. Right?